Hello. This is a video about a physics engine called Matter.js. I am going to teach you how to use Matter.js. Here's the problem. I don't really know Matter.js very well, so what I'm actually going to show you is me trying to attempt to make a very simple example in Matter.js by reading the documentation and figuring it out as we go. Now, it's not that I've never looked at this before. I have. I made some examples of it previously. I haven't looked at it in a while, but I've certainly, I certainly haven't spent more than like 45. You don't need to know about the amount of time. Let's just get started. So Matter.js is a physics engine. What is a physics engine? If you really wanted to, you could watch a different video that I have that I'll link to in the description where I spent a very long time kind of talking about what a physics engine is. I didn't do a very good job. But anyway, this video is going to be much better. I can tell already. So Matter.js is a JavaScript physics engine. You can see a lot of demos of what it can do right here, just even on its homepage. It's an open source physics engine. You can find it on GitHub. Thank you to the creator and everybody who's contributed to this engine. It's terrific. So you can find the source code, documentation, etc. So most physics engines operate with this idea of having a world. Here's the world right here. That world can have things in it, like shapes, and those are often called bodies, and I think they're called bodies in Matter.js. And also, you can have something that connects different bodies together, and in Matter.js, those are called constraints. So what I want to do is maybe just create a simple example where a couple squares fall from the top of the screen to the bottom and bounce off of each other. And let's just see if we can get that to happen. Okay, so what I have so far in my code is I'm using the P5.js as a library for drawing and animation. I have a setup function where I make a canvas, and I have a draw function that loops over and over again where I set the background. If I go and look at my code, here it is. So what's a way that we can kind of get started with Matter.js? If I go to the home page, let's actually look on GitHub just for a second. So if I look on GitHub, I feel like in the README, let's see, I saw a getting started page somewhere. Install usage, let's look at usage. Examples, no, wait. Getting started, this is what I'm looking for. So I'm looking for this getting started wiki. So one thing is we've got to make sure that we have the Matter.js library, you can see it up there, referenced in our HTML page, and I've done that. So if I look at the, if I go back to Adam here, you can see I have an index.html file, which is referencing the P5 library and the Matter.library, and both of those are in this library folder, Matter.js and P5.js. So if you want to do exactly this example, you've got to have both of those libraries, the files for them, referenced in your index.html. In addition to referencing my own sketch code. Okay. Now here, following is a minimal example using the built-in renderer and runner to get you started. So one of the things that Matter has is it has a built-in renderer, meaning it will actually draw everything to a canvas for you. You don't have to do it at all. You can even set settings and styles things, but that's an interesting way of working and a really quick way to just try things out. But I'm going to try to build an example where I'm not going to use a built-in renderer. I'm going to use my own renderer, P5, so I can really have total control over the design. Okay, so first thing is module aliases. So what's the deal with that? Let's copy that into our code. You'll see this with a lot of libraries. Module aliases. So why do you have these? Well, a lot of JavaScript libraries are namespaced, meaning they have things you can use in them, like an engine or a renderer or a world or a body. And so, but they're all namespaced under matter.render, matter.world, because what if there was a built-in variable in JavaScript in the browser already called world? You don't want to have a conflict, so you call it matter.world. But every time you want to reference world in your code, you don't want to have to type matter.world, matter.world. So this is a little alias that I could just say, the thing is matter.world, but I want to set world equal to matter.world, so I can type it whenever I want. So that's a quick thing we've got so far. We've got some aliases. And to be honest, this one I don't want. But I'm going to comment that out because I don't want to use it by accident. Okay, let's go back here. Now, engine. So a physics engine is an engine. We've got to say, hey, make the engine. So let's do that. So I'm going to put that in setup. And I might want to have a global variable reference to that engine. And I'm going to do that right after I create the canvas. So So I'm going to put that in setup. We're making our engine. This is pretty good so far. you're watching a video where somebody is copy pasting code from a browser into a text editor. You realize that's what you're watching right now. Maybe it'll get better. I'm going to skip this renderer thing. Look at this. Okay, so this is exciting. This is showing some examples of how you can create bodies in the world. So there are a bunch of functions. We're seeing just an example of one of them here, rectangle. So I'm just going to do one of them. I'm just going to grab this, and I'm going to make a variable called box. And I'm going to add this now to setup. And I'm going to say box equals bodies.rectangle. Now, here's the thing. I'm going to give myself a little more space here. We could probably guess, right? This function is creating a rectangular body at pixel location 400, 200, probably with a width of 80 pixels and a height of 80 pixels. But let's say we wanted to confirm that that was the case. How would we do this? So one of the things we can look at is if I go to Matter.js and I want to go to documentation. And under documentation, I kind of look at, okay, these are all the different kind of subcategories where there are various functions and objects you can have access to. And constraint is clearly where we're going to make things to like connect. Bounds is kind of interesting. Maybe that has to do with the boundaries of the world. But bodies, if I click on that, bodies has a whole bunch of methods like circle. Circle creates a circle. From vertices, meaning I could pass a list of vertices to get some sort of polygon. This is great. And if I look down in here and try to find rectangle, we can see X, Y, width, height options. So what's interesting about this is there are some options. See the properties section of the matter.body module for more details on what you can pass via the options object. Let's keep looking. This is exciting. Let's do some detective work. So by the way, why am I just saying bodies.rectangle? Remember, it's actually really matter.bodies.rectangle. But that aside. So let's not worry about the options right now. We could dig into that later. Okay, so now I have a box. This is very exciting. Okay, so now what I'm going to do is, where were we? Well, let's keep going with this. What I want is I want a variable actually that also keeps track of the world. And you can see the world is an entity that's part of the engine. So I'm going to create, so I have an engine, which is the whole physics engine itself. And inside that physics engine, there's going to be a world that's full of bodies. So I'm going to make a variable called world. And I'm going to say world equals engine.world, which is maybe a little silly, but you know, I like to sort of organize things in a very organized way. And then I want to make sure the engine runs. So I'm going to say engine.run engine. Now, a lot of physics engines will require you in draw or in your animation loop to explicitly say update. Update each moment in time, or step through each moment in time. Looks like Matter.js doesn't require you to do that. It just says you can just tell the engine to run. And so it's going to be going. And I would assume that there's some way of configuring, you know, how is it kind of like updating itself 30 frames per second, 60 frames per second? What is its measurement of time? So we could probably dig into the documentation, but the default running the engine is probably going to be good enough for us. So what I want to do next is, so now I'm stuck, right? Because I don't want the renderer to do anything automatically. What I want to be able to do here is now, what I've done is I've set up the engine. I've said, make the engine, make the world, put one box into it. And now what I want you to do, please, is every time in draw, I want to ask the physics engine, oh, please, physics engine thing, where is that box? So what we need to look at, so actually, let's just do something here. Let's just say console.log. We could look in the documentation, but one thing that might be nice is just to say console.log box. So let's go back here, hit refresh, and look at this. Oh, you know what? So I've done something rather terrible. It's so nice of P5 to give me this error message. P5, and Alka in the chat writes that the default for Matter.js is 60 frames per second, so that's great to know. P5 had problems creating the global function box, possibly because your code is already using that name as a variable. You may want to rename that variable to something else. So I've done something rather not so good because there actually is a function in P5 called box, and I made my own variable called box. This is why namespacing exists. P5 works very much in the global namespace to keep things simple, so I could just say box. I don't have to say p5.box. So I'm going to name this boxy. box one. Terrible name. Boxy was better. So now let's console log box one. Let's run this again. And we can see here's the object. So we can look and we can see, look at all this stuff. Angle, angle previous, angular speed, angular velocity, bounds, axes. There's so much information here. Parent, parts, position. Well, look at this. Position's definitely going to be useful for us. X is 400, Y is 200. So let's make use of that. Let's try saying rectangle box1.x box1.y. Now, could I get the width and height from the box? Now, I kind of have a sneaking suspicion that I'm not going to find any variable for width and height in here. There probably is a variable that keeps track of its vertices somewhere. Oh, okay. Oh, there it is. I looked for a little while there. Vertices. So this I could use, which is actually going to give me the x, y of all of its vertices. But I'm going to do this. There's so many different ways I could do this. I'm going to do this one way right now, which I'm just going to do. I'm just going to do this an awful way, which is I'm going to hard code in the width and the height that I know about. So now let's run this program again. This magical program. I'm going to hit refresh. It's going to be really sad when this doesn't work. Boy, that drum roll was pathetic. So how come I don't see it? Oh, I just said .x.y. Remember, what was it in? Oh, that's so sad. I was not being careful and thoughtful here. It was actually called position, position.x. So I need to look at box1 position.x, box1 position.y. Oh, it's so sad. Let's console log box1.position.x. Oh, I put it at 400, 200. I put it somewhere off the screen because I was using its default. Oh, this is terrible. Let's put it at 200 and put it higher up at like 100. Boy, I'm really a terrible programmer. Everybody should go subscribe to a different channel. I do have a snare drum roll though. Hey, there it is. Oh, thank you, my box. Okay. But I'm getting a really, really good. Alex in the chat is making an incredibly good point. I forgot a key piece of this because I got off track. What step am I missing? I need to make the engine. The engine's going to have the world. I need to make the body, and then that body needs to go in the world, right? I need to actually say, hey, that body is something that's going to experience the physics. And if we go back to that getting started page, I'm sure we'll see world.add and then a bunch of things. So this is a way that I can add something. If I unpack this code here, if I say world.add, so this is a generic function add. And it's funny, like I would almost like this to be this. This is what I want to do, which is to say add box1 to the world. But it looks like what's actually happening in Matter is that I have an add function which is namespaced under world, where I give it both the world that I want to add to and the things that I want to add. So I wouldn't be surprised if this, apparently you can give it an array, but what can I just give it a single object? Let's try that. So now let's run it again. I forget that stupid drum roll. Hey, there it is. Woo! So this is what I mean. If all I wanted to do, if this was my project, using, and Matter.js, that was pretty simple to do with Matter.js as a physics engine, but I definitely need a sad trombone sound effect. If this was my project, I would not want to go through all of this figuring out the physics engine. I could just have x, y, and say y equals y plus whatever, and then add some gravity and that sort of thing. But what I'm getting here now is, first of all, let me reorganize the code in a different way. So first of all, I want to do something that's going to make things easier for me to manage. I'm going to create a new file. I'm going to call it box.js. And I'm going to write, and I think this should be okay because it's capital box. I'm going to create my own box. And it's going to have it's going to have a body in it. So my box is going to get an x, a y, a width, and a height. And when I make, so I'm going to make my own object, which is a wrapper for the Matter.js object. So now I'm going to go in here. It's just got a little bit unnecessary, but I think will be nice. So I'm going to grab this code, and I'm going to put it here. So this rectangle is going to be the body associated with this box. And then when I make that body, I also want to remember to add it. So I'm going to put this in the object. And again, there's a umpteen ways, and it's not so great that I'm using a global variable here, but there's umpteen ways I could organize the code. This is just one. So I'm going to add the body to the world in the object. And then I am going to write into that object a function called this.show, where I'm going to say pos equals this.body.position. I'm going to ask for the position. Now I also actually really need the angle, this.body.angle, because that thing might start to rotate as it bounces off of stuff. And I'm guessing it's body.angle, but we'll find out soon enough. And then I'm going to say push and pop, and I'm going to use translate now. So I'm going to get a bit fancier. I'm going to say translate to pos.x, pos.y. And then I am going to say rectangle, pos 0, 0 with height. Now, the funny thing is, this width and height variable is kind of available down to me down here, but I don't love the way I did this. I think I want to just put that in. I'm going to add my own, since the body doesn't keep track of its own width and height, I'm going to add my own variable to keep track of that. And let's just see, without worrying about the angle right now, let's now see I've made my own box object. So now I can say box1 equals a new box object that's my own, 200, 100, 50, 50. And then I can say box1.show. So this should be the same program. I always like to do that when I know I've missed something. Yeah, okay. Box is not defined. What did I forget? I added a new JavaScript file. I didn't reference it in index.html. So I'm going to do that right now. I'm going to add it here. I'm going to reference box.js. And here we go. There we go. Look at that. Woohoo! Okay, so now that's working. This is exciting. Now, what do I've got? Let's do this. Let's make this an array. Boxes is an array. Let's take this. Let's say function mouse pressed. Whenever I click the mouse, let's say boxes.push a new box at mouse x, mouse y, and let's make them smaller, 20, 20. And then let's, in draw, I'm going to, I'm almost going to, I was so close to using a for each loop there. It would have made some of you guys so happy, but today's not the day. It'll come someday. And then I'm going to say boxes index I.show. So what I'm doing now is I got that one object working. I sort of packaged all the physics stuff into the object so I could just make a bunch of them. And now, mouse Y is not defined because I spelled it wrong. Now each time I click the mouse, I get it back. Now, can we really see if any physics is going on here besides just gravity? So what do we need to do? One thing I want to do that's really going to make this work is I want to add something at the bottom here that they'll bounce off of. I want to add a ground. So how do I add ground? So I'm going to make a variable called ground. And ultimately, I could also kind of wrap my own object there, but I'm going to be a little bit lazy about this. And I'm going to say ground equals bodies dot rectangle. And then I want this. Now, an interesting question is, does Matter.js consider the center of the rectangle? I bet you that's what it is, or the top left. I don't know. Let's guess it's the center. I kind of have a feeling that. I want my rectangle to be in the middle and at the bottom, and I want it to be the full width and just like 10 pixels high. Because I want to have a body that sits at the bottom that things bounce off of. But I don't want that body to move. So what I want is I don't want a dynamic body. These are box2D terms, but the same concept applies in Matter.js. I want a static body. And I noticed, as we're looking at this getting started page, this is where those options come in, right? If I create a rectangle at this location and I give it an extra option like is static equal true, and so what I'm going to do, I'm going to make my code a little bit more long-winded, but I'm going to say options, and what was it? Is static true? So I'm going to make a little JavaScript object, and I'm sure there are lots of other options I could add here. Options is static true, and I'm going to have the ground be, I'm going to add those options to the ground, and then I need to say world, what was it again? Dot add world ground, was that it? I don't remember. Yeah, that's it. So I also want to add the ground to the world. All right, let's see. Oh, look at that. Ooh, sort of, it's doing something, but it's a little bit weird, right? It's a little bit off. And one thing I want to do just to make this a little bit more dynamic is I want to change this to mouse dragged, just so I can add a bunch at once. Right? You can see them all bouncing, but it's not working, right? Now, first of all, I didn't draw the ground. This is a thing to remember, right? I could do this. Look at this. I could say, hey, make the ground in the middle of the window. There it is. I don't have to draw it. I could now draw a line there if I wanted to, because it's all based on, I could draw a line in the wrong place. It would be crazy. But what's missing here? These rectangles, as they bounce off each other, are going to rotate. And so the nice thing is, I have to assume, now the question is, I can use the rotate function based on that angle. So I can rotate the rectangles based on the angle that I'm getting from the body. Now, is that angle in degrees or radians? I don't know. Let's find out. That doesn't look right. Does that look right to you? Does not look right to you. So let's guess that it's giving it to me in degrees. And let's convert it to radians. Whoops, that's not right either. Where's my sad trombone sound? So let's figure this out. Ah, I know what it is. So the rectangle function in P5 draws the rectangle with its reference point the top left. So I need to tell P5, no. The 0, 0 is at the center of the rectangle. Rect mode center. So I need to, this is a really key thing that comes up with working with physics engines. The way you're drawing stuff needs to match the way the physics engine thinks it exists. And it's not just going to work automatically. You've got to really make sure those things match. And obviously I'm getting things wrong here and there. Okay, so I think that's pretty good. Let me move the world back to the bottom. And let me just draw something along the bottom just to, let's make a line that goes from 0 height to width height, and I'm going to say stroke weight 4 and fill 255. And then what I want to do with the boxes also is be a bit more thoughtful about what they look like. So I'm going to say stroke weight 1, stroke 255, and then fill 127 or something. Okay. So now we can see this looks better. Yes? Yay, I think you can see that they're, okay, so they really are getting kind of like stuck on each other. And I have a feeling I remember, hold on, so a bunch of things I want to fix here. So number one is, I know I'm seeing the floor. I would really like to see the floor. So I put fill here by accident instead of stroke. So let me put that in. No, because it's white, you can't actually see it. So let me make that, like 170 or something. This is silly what I'm doing now. You can kind of see it there. But actually, you know what? I'm being so silly here. This should really be, I should really draw the floor exactly as I made it up here. And so I'm going to be really, really like lazy about this. And I should make an object and do all these things that I did with the other thing. I'm going to make this a rectangle just so it's actually in the right place. Oops, and now yes, so this should also be rect mode a center. There, now you can see the floor is there, and I have the stroke weight there by accident, which I don't want anymore. Okay, so you can see here, and I actually, let me just do no stroke. Okay, sorry, so you can see there's the floor. So the things are landing on the floor. Now, one thing that's kind of going on here is you can see they kind of like getting stuck on each other almost immediately. And they're also like kind of pushing up against each other. So I have a feeling now this comes down to a sort of moment where what we now need to do is kind of tune the engine to perform the way that I might like it to perform. So, so I have a feeling that some of the properties that I can add, like affecting its friction or its density or its restitution, are things that I could tweak. So let me look at how I might do that. Now I wonder, let's look at that options again, because maybe we can add those things in options. So in the documentation, it said here, see the properties section of matter.body module for detail on what you can pass via the options object. So let's go to matter.body. Oops, no. Matter, I want matter.body. So that's right here, body. And then I want to look for options. So what are my options? Whoops. I'm looking for the more detailed I kind of know what they are, but I want to be able to see. There's all these things I could do: set mass, set parts, set position, set static, set velocity, translate, update. Oh my God, there's so many things I could do. So there are these properties. The following properties, this is what I'm looking for. The following properties are specified for objects created by matter.body.create and for objects passed to it via the options argument. So these are things I could adjust after the fact. Like when I'm looking for, let's just look for friction, for example. A number that defines the friction of the body. The value is always positive and in the range 0 to 1. A value of 0 means the body may slide indefinitely. A value of 1 means the body may come to a stop almost instantly after a force is applied. So this is actually the kind of thing that I could probably do this in a number of ways. Number one is I could do something like this. I could just say this.body.friction equals 1. So I could do it here. I have a feeling that works. Can you tell if this is different? I don't know. Now I could set it to 0. Let's just see. Yeah, you can definitely tell that that's different. 0 friction versus a friction of 1. That's kind of interesting to see. So, but I could also probably do this again. And this might be a little bit nicer because I can do a bunch of options. So I'm going to say options here. And these don't have to be the same for every. So what I want to do is do friction. And I also want to do, so I'm going to do 0.5, just somewhere in the middle. I also want to do restitution. So restitution has to do with the sort of bounciness. Like, is this thing that's falling, is it going to land and just sort of land there and stop? Or is it going to hit there and bounce way up because it's very elastic or spongy or bouncy? So let's look up restitution. I'm sure the documentation will explain it better than my botched little whatever thing there. Ooh, air friction. A number that defines the restitution elasticity of the body. The value is always positive, 0 and 1. A value of 0 means collisions may be perfectly inelastic and no bouncing. A value of 0.8 means the body may bounce back with approximately 80% of its kinetic energy. Hey, we got some physics stuff going on here. So let's now, let's give it a restitution of 1 and go back. There, you can see how bouncy they are. So that's like too much. So what I want to do is, I want to move the bottom just for the sake of argument to height minus 50. I want to be a little more thoughtful and say ground.position.x, ground.position.y. And by the way, it would be an interesting exercise to like angle the ground. So let's just do that. And now let's do this. And what I want to do there is, there was a little bit of glitchiness there. I want to make the restitution like 0.6 and the friction like 0.3, and I feel like this is what I want. Ooh, why are some going through? I wonder if so I think there's a little bit of an issue here where when I drag the mouse, I'm creating so many objects on top of themselves. And so in this case, just to like look at this in a slightly different way, I think I want to go back to mouse pressed, just so I can look at them one at a time. Oh, why did that happen? They're so bouncy. So that must be doing something a little bit off here. It looks right though. I went, I'm like enjoying my physics. So I think I'm gonna look at this some more and see if there's some other things I need to tune with this. And then I am going to I'm going to come back. I'm looking at the chat right now because I'm seeing some interesting comments. I'm going to come back, and in the next video, I'm going to add a few things to this. Number one thing that I want to make sure to show you how to do is how to add some mouse interaction. So if I want to click on one of these and drag it and kind of toss it around. And I'm also really wondering why those first ones, what I'm wondering here is why the first ones seem to like fall through the ground. Like what is going on there? Okay, so there's an issue where is that you're noticing that sometimes these squares are like falling through the bottom. And my suspicion here is that I made the ground this very, very skinny rectangle. And these boxes are actually moving quite quickly by the time they get to the bottom. And perhaps the time step is such that its position at one moment and the next moment kind of skips over it. So there's probably some settings in Matter.js that I could change in terms of its time step calculation. But I want to look into that. But right now, here's a way I could fix this. I could just make it thicker. So just to like make sure. So I'm going to make the height of it 100, and then I'm doing a very silly thing where I have to type in this hard-coded value in 2 places to also draw it that high. So now I've got a much sort of like thicker ground, so to speak. I have a feeling that even if I drop it from way up high, it's not going to be able to skip over it. So now we're seeing that this physics engine, that this example, this demonstration is kind of working more like what you might imagine. Here's one thing I'd like to do just to make this have a little bit more variety, just so you see it, is I want to go into box.js. And, oh, actually, let me just do this up here. And I'm going to make, when I create the new, I'm going to make it with a random width between 10 and 40 and a random height between 10 and 40. So let's just see, make sure this still works with different sized rectangles. Oh, yeah. It's funny how the first two were like squares. So you can see here that this works even with rectangles of varying size. Wonderful. So here is a basic implementation of Matter.js. Really simple. There's a lot of things I could build on top of this. I need to look at how I can drag things around with the mouse. I need to look at, well, how could I make it an arbitrary polygon that's not just a rectangle? What if I wanted it to be a circle? I'm sure you could think of a lot of your own features. So I'm going to do a couple more video tutorials and a coding challenge at some point to build a particular scenario. So thanks for watching this Matter.js tutorial, and I'll see you in some future ones.